The lobby of the Aurelia Grand Hotel glimmered beneath the weight of its chandeliers. Every crystal droplet caught the light like a promise of exclusivity, casting 1,000 reflections on the marble floor. A line of black-suited security guards stood rigid near the velvet ropes, separating the ordinary guests from the gilded VIP section. The scent of money hung in the air, French perfume, polished wood, and champagne poured without looking at the price tag. In the far corner, away from the elegance and murmured laughter, sat a man who didn't belong. Caleb Vance wore jeans and a faded jacket, his rough hands wrapped around a glass of water with a cracked rim. Across from him, a 10-year-old girl folded a napkin with quiet focus, her tongue pressed against her lip in concentration. Each fold was deliberate, careful, and when she was done, she tucked the tiny paper crane into her father's shirt pocket. "As long as it stays safe." "You stay safe, Daddy," she whispered. He smiled, the kind of weary smile that holds 1,000 unspoken promises. "Then I guess I better take good care of it, huh?" Arya nodded seriously, satisfied with the ritual. It was her way of protecting him, and Caleb never corrected her. If a paper crane could guard him from the world, he'd let her believe it. Reality had taught him that protection often came in quieter forms. Tonight was supposed to be routine. He was at the Aurelia Grand to finalize a maintenance contract for their fire safety systems, steady work that would help pay rent, school fees, and groceries. The hotel was far too luxurious for his kind, but it had free Wi-Fi and comfortable seats where Arya could pass the time on her tablet. It should have been an ordinary night, but people like Caleb rarely get ordinary nights. The hotel manager noticed him first, a man with hair so neatly parted it looked painted on. His tone was chilled by disdain as he approached. "Sir, the service area is in the basement. This lobby is for guests only." Caleb looked up, patient but tired. "I'm waiting for Mr. Drummond, the contracts manager. He said to meet here." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then perhaps you can wait outside. We wouldn't want anyone getting confused." A murmur rippled through the bar. Several wealthy guests turned their heads. A woman with diamonds heavy enough to bend her neck leaned toward her companion. "Single dad by the look of him. Probably can't afford a babysitter." Her friend chuckled. "He brings the kid everywhere." "How tragic." Arya froze mid-fold, realizing they were talking about her. Color crept into her cheeks. Caleb noticed his hand tightening around the cracked glass, but he said nothing. He'd been insulted before. Words don't kill. But the pain in his daughter's eyes, that was harder to ignore. "Look at that jacket," another man scoffed from the bar. "Thrift store special. What kind of father can't even buy himself decent clothes?" Caleb forced himself to breathe, keeping his expression calm. He reached across the table, covering Arya's trembling hands with his own. "It's okay, sweetheart," he murmured. "They don't know us," she nodded, though her lip quivered. A single tear landed on the crumpled paper crane. Then something shifted across the room. In the VIP section, one of the security guards, a tall man with a buzz cut and too much confidence, was cornering a young woman in a simple black dress. She wasn't dressed like the others. There was a quiet grace about her, not wealth. The guard leaned in close, blocking her escape. "Come on," he said, smiling in a way that never reached his eyes. "Sit with us. The night's more fun with a pretty woman." "I said no," she answered firmly, glancing around for help. No one moved. The other guests looked away. Even the staff pretended not to see. Another guard joined in. "Don't be shy. We're important people. You should feel honored." The woman's back hit the wall as she tried to step away. That was when Caleb stood. He didn't speak at first. He simply set his cracked glass on the table, brushed off his jacket, and started walking. Arya looked up, her small voice barely audible. "Daddy?" He didn't answer. He just kept moving, slow and deliberate, until his presence cut through the laughter like a blade. "Take your hands off her," Caleb said evenly. The head of security, Darius Kane, his name stitched on the badge, turned toward him with a mocking grin. "Wrong man, buddy. This isn't your place." The laughter from the bar swelled. "Maintenance boy playing hero," someone called out. "Go fix a pipe." "Single dads think they're saints," another added. Caleb ignored them. He was watching everything else, The angled security cameras that had been turned away from the scene, the emergency exit lights that were off, the missing bar staff. This wasn't spontaneous, it was planned. Someone had made sure there'd be no witnesses that mattered. The hotel manager's voice sliced through the tension. "Sir, please, these are valued customers. Return to your table and mind your business." Caleb's reply was soft but sharp. When a lady says no, that's everyone's business. Darius stepped closer, his cologne thick in the air. "You don't know who you're talking to." "I know exactly what you are," Caleb said. Laughter rippled again. "You gonna call the cops?" Darius taunted. "We own the cops!" He shoved Caleb hard in the chest. Cameras rose as guests began recording. The crowd expected humiliation, a spectacle to upload later for likes and views, but Caleb didn't move. He stood like stone. "Last warning," he said quietly. "Let her go, or what?" Darius sneered. Caleb rolled up his sleeve. The light caught the scars first, long, pale reminders of a life erased. Then came the ink, dark and unmistakable, a stylized emblem shaped like a shrouded mask, the insignia of the Iron Veil unit. A ghost from a war no one was supposed to remember. The laughter died. Someone whispered, That's Iron Veil." "That's impossible," Darius said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "They're all dead." Caleb's eyes didn't blink. "Maybe you should reconsider who you're dealing with." The room fell still. The woman's breath came fast, relief mixing with disbelief. Darius hesitated, then made the mistake of reaching for her again. 15 seconds changed everything. Caleb moved with a quiet precision that defied the chaos. The cracked glass from the table became a weapon, not to wound, but to neutralize. He swept it across Darius's wrist at the exact pressure point, forcing his hand to go limp. The woman slipped free as Darius cursed, stumbling back. The second guard lunged. Caleb caught a wooden chair and twisted it sideways, pinning the man against the wall without breaking a bone. The third reached from behind. Caleb turned, looped the man's thumb in a pressure hold, and dropped him to his knees with a strangled yelp. The entire room watched in stunned silence. 3 guards, all neutralized. No broken glass, no blood, no rage. Just control. The guests who'd been laughing were now speechless. Arya sat frozen at their table, tears replaced by awe. Her father hadn't raised his voice once. The young woman straightened her dress, trembling. "You don't know who I am," she said softly. "My name is Celine Hart. Hartwell Global." A murmur rippled through the lobby. Hartwell Global was worth billions. The whispers grew. Celine continued, her voice gaining strength. "I've been investigating this hotel chain for money laundering and trafficking. These men are part of it." The hotel manager went pale. "Miss Hart, you can explain it to the prosecutors," she snapped. "We have evidence." Caleb didn't react. "Doesn't matter who you are," he said. "No one gets to touch you without permission." Celine stared at him, her eyes widening. "Wait, that mark on your arm. The Iron Veil insignia. You're Ghost Jack. Commander Vance. They said you died in the Ravenfield fire." Caleb shook his head, calm as ever. "That man's gone!" The crowd erupted in whispers. A man in uniform near the bar said, almost reverently, "That's the Ghost Unit. They wiped their records clean after the base explosion." "He's real!" The lobby exploded with movement. Phones recorded everything. Within minutes, sirens wailed outside. Police stormed in, taking control. The guards were cuffed, the manager arrested. Evidence flooded from the hotel's computers like blood from a wound. Celine approached Caleb again. "You didn't just save me. You exposed an entire network." "I just did what anyone should," he said, but anyone hadn't. That was the difference. As Darius was led past, he snarled, "This isn't over." Caleb's reply was quiet. "It is for you." The applause began hesitantly, then spread until the marble hall thundered with it. Guests who had mocked him now tried to shake his hand. Caleb only gathered Arya's things. "Come on, sweetheart," he said softly. "You have school tomorrow." Celine stopped him before he could leave. "Your daughter's cranes," she said, picking one up gently. "They're beautiful." "They keep him safe," Arya whispered. Celine smiled faintly. I think they did. By morning, the world knew his name. The video went viral. Wrong man. Single father reveals secret past. The clip of Caleb disarming 3 guards without violence spread across every platform. But the real story wasn't the fight, it was what came after. Hartwell Global's investigation proved real. The Aurelia Grand's entire management was charged in a money laundering scheme. Caleb Vance, the quiet man in a thrift store jacket, had brought down a criminal empire with nothing but calm and conviction. That night, in their small apartment, Aria sat cross-legged on the couch watching the news. "Daddy, you're on TV again!" Caleb reached for the remote. "We don't need to. I want to see," she insisted. On screen, Celine stood at a press conference. "Mr. Vance didn't know who I was," she said. "He saw someone in danger and acted. That's not heroism, that's decency." His daughter makes paper cranes to keep him safe. Last night, her father kept all of us safe. The camera zoomed in on a single paper crane beside the microphone. Aria grinned proudly. "She likes my cranes." Caleb smiled for the first time in a long while. "She really does." The next morning, a knock came at the door. Celine stood there, dressed down in jeans and a sweater, holding a small camera bag. "Mr. Vance," she said, "may we talk?" Caleb hesitated but stepped aside. They sat at his tiny kitchen table while Aria built another crane in the background. Celine showed him her phone, hundreds of messages from around the world. Security officers, hotel staff, even parents. They're inspired by what you did. They're calling it the wrong man moment. He frowned. "I'm not a movement." "You didn't choose it," she said softly. But people saw the difference between power and control, between dominance and protection. Caleb read a few of the messages. A security guard in Tokyo refusing to follow an unethical order. A father in Chicago stepping in to stop an assault. A teacher in Brazil starting a self-defense program for girls. All because they'd watched one man refuse to look away. "Wrong man," Celine said. "Turns out you were the right one." Aria looked up from her paper. "Are you going to help more people, Daddy?" Caleb knelt beside her. "What do you think?" She handed him a new crane folded from newspaper. "This one's for teaching. You should teach people how to be safe." He nodded slowly. "Maybe I should." That afternoon, Caleb agreed to one interview, his only one. The reporter asked about his military past, the hotel, his daughter. "What would you say to those who think you were just lucky?" She asked. "Luck had nothing to do with it," Caleb said. "Training matters, but what matters more is knowing when someone needs help. And to those who say civilians shouldn't get involved, there are no civilians when someone's in danger," he replied. "Only people who act and people who look away." The interview went viral again. Requests flooded in. Corporate contracts, government offers, book deals. Caleb declined them all. That evening, Aria asked, "Daddy, why don't you want to be famous?" "Because the important work happens quietly," he said. "Like folding cranes." A week later, Celine launched the line in the Sand Foundation. The event wasn't held in a boardroom, but in a community center. The audience was a mix of guards, janitors, parents, teachers, people who worked in the spaces where real protection mattered. Caleb stood in the back, his worn jacket blending into the shadows, Aria by his side. Celine's voice carried through the hall. "We're not training warriors. We're training protectors, people who know that strength isn't about force, but restraint." Behind her, a logo appeared on the screen, a simple white paper crane. "Aria's design, every person trained here," Celine continued, "will carry one as a reminder that the smallest actions can make the biggest difference." Applause thundered. Caleb smiled quietly as Aria taught a few children nearby how to fold cranes. "She's the real teacher," he murmured when Celine joined him afterward. Celine smiled. "Maybe so. But the world still needs men who remember what protection really means." As they drove home, Aria stared out the window. "Daddy, what if everyone had paper cranes?" "Then maybe," he said, "everyone would remember to take care of each other." The city lights slid past, reflections glimmering like quiet hope on the windshield. A month later, Celine stood before a packed auditorium. The foundation had spread globally, thousands trained, hundreds of centers opening. Behind her, the giant screen displayed the paper crane spinning slowly in golden light. "Wrong man," she said to the audience. "Or maybe right person, right time." Thanks to one father, the world remembered that boundaries matter. That protection is not possession. The crowd rose in thunderous applause. In the last row, almost hidden in shadow, Caleb sat beside Arya. She held a fresh paper crane, folded from gold foil this time. "Daddy," she whispered, "my cranes are flying everywhere now." He looked at her and smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, but they'll always find their way home." After the ceremony, Celine found them by their car. "Caleb, wait," she called, handing him a small envelope. Inside was an old photograph, Caleb with his Iron Veil team before Ravenfield burned. On the back, written in a familiar hand, "Wrong man. No, right person. Right time. Your former commanding officer sent it," Celine said. "He's been following your story. He wants to know if you're ready to train again. Different kind of soldier this time." Arya tugged his sleeve. "What does that mean?" Caleb knelt beside her. "It means some people think Daddy should teach others how to protect. Like how I teach kids to make cranes?" "Exactly like that," she thought for a moment, then nodded. "I think you should. Everyone deserves to feel safe." Caleb looked down at the photograph, the ghosts of his past staring back. Maybe some ghosts weren't meant to haunt, they were meant to guide. He took Arya's hand, and together they walked toward the car. Behind them, the Foundation's banner fluttered in the wind, a single paper crane at its center. Some scars, he thought, aren't for showing off. They're reminders. To act when others look away, to protect when it's easier to remain silent, to draw the line where no one else dares. A father's real strength isn't in the fight. It's in the calm that makes the world stop and listen. And somewhere in that calm, a small paper crane fluttered in his pocket, still unbroken.